Today, I'm chatting with Mark Brandau, who's the Chief Marketing Officer at Brightmind, which is a global provider of people data, analytics, insights, and compliance solutions. Mark, thanks so much for joining me.
Joel, thank you for having me. It's my pleasure. It's always fun to be with you. So I look forward to this session. It's great. Thank you.
So, Mark, we're coming up on Halloween season, and I want to know, what is your favorite Halloween treat?
Okay, candy, Mary Janes and bit of honeys and stuff like that. So candy-wise, I don't have a big sweet tooth, but I like some of that old stuff a little bit. Maybe even candy corn. Remember the candy corn stuff?
I was going to ask if you were a candy corn person or not.
Love it. Love it. Dangerous. You can eat like 10 pounds of that stuff.
I have trick-or-treating age kids, and so they will bring back just scores of candy and treats, and we'll let them pick out maybe 5 or 10 that they can keep, and then we confiscate the rest. So I caught a session that you did at Unleash earlier in the year that I thought was really great, and I wanted to talk about that a little bit. So the session you did was around compliance challenges facing HR right now. And so overall consensus has been that compliance is getting more complex to navigate for HR teams, for organizations. What do you see as some of the biggest challenges around compliance facing organizations right now?
Compliance issues are insidious because talk about being scared, they take multiple forms and they can sneak up and get you when you're not paying attention. Your question, let me take it from two sides of the coin. The types of compliance are proliferating. And it's not just as we often think about here in the States, of course, federal and state laws, but then you go global, you have individual country laws and region laws, so there's global expansion. There's also differences in things like data protection and privacy that vary based on jurisdiction. There's also things like health and well-being, COVID again, and regulations around that, and the CARES Act. There's also things like workplace safety and health. There's also things like diversity and inclusion. Then, just for giggles, depending on the industry you're in, you have industry-specific compliance and regulatory things that have to be done, say, for oil and gas versus or energy exploration versus healthcare. So is it becoming more complicated to keep up with compliance, which is a big bucket? It absolutely is, because regulations in most of the areas that I'm talking about are proliferating. They're not getting easier. So the other side of that coin is what I started to talk about at the session, which is what that creates. It creates an undercurrent of disruption because companies have to scramble to constantly keep up with, and HR leaders have to constantly scramble to go, am I compliant? Not just as a practitioner, but are my employees compliant in their jobs? Trust, data trust. Another one, do I trust the data I have that it's compliant? That's critical. If I do things to improve compliance, is that a lost cause? Because it's just a sinkhole of money, right? Am I just throwing money away? And then the last thing was around deficient resourcing, because most HR practitioners that I've talked with do not have money. Put it bluntly, they have very limited budgets and they don't have resources to ensure compliance. So that puts you into a pivot of, how do you make compliance less of a headache and more of an advantage, or something that you can pivot to for a better outcome? So you're not constantly on your heels. So yeah, there's a lot constantly evolving in compliance.
Just to add to that, post-release, we tracked 150 changes to state and federal labor laws just over the past 12-month period. Which, think about being able to keep aware of all those updates and make the necessary changes and things you have to do to stay compliant within that. Another point around HR teams not having budget, they also have less headcount. And a lot of times that means less specialists on the team that might have areas of expertise around compliance. The general rule, I was talking to Sarah White a couple months ago, is that HR teams are filled more with HR generalists now. And they lost some of the specialists that they had when their teams were more full, were expanded. So just adds another layer of difficulty for these organizations and HR teams.
I think your point around, what'd you say, 100? I think 120 or 140?
150.
150. This is certainly the case for Brightminer. And there's some other vendors that do this as well, but that creates the need. I think we look at, I hate to say it, but we look at AI and automation for real practical tools that help HR generalists, as you mentioned, stay in front of this. So tools that automate that, like automated handbook management for an HR generalist, simple tool. It's the equivalent of an impulse buy at the grocery store, the candy, right? I want the Reese's thing with the extra chocolate, as you mentioned. Those types of tools aren't a platform play. Those are just simple things that can help an HR practitioner not have to worry about, God, my handbook's out of date. I don't know what's changed. Can I have somebody audit this automatically